All right, guys, I haven't posted a video in a little while. It's because I keep breaking my phone. My phone's my only camera. It's my only source of the internet. So there's actually been a lot going on that I would have loved to show you, but phone's been broke. So anyway, got it back, obviously, and I'll try to get you guys up to date here in the next, week or so. See, these are my bulls, but these are not my cows. Bulls are over at my neighbor's place. I'll explain that later. So, following along with the lessons I've learned over the last few years, I think I want this video to mostly focus on stuff I've learned about the cows. We're going to start over here. There's not actually any cows over here, but it's relevant. I'm at the water gap that I built right here. There's this big ditch. You can see all this crap over here. That's all going to wash down there next time we have high water. It's all going to wash down here and it's going to go through this gap. And that's why I built it the way I did. And I was out here just looking at it. I had to come get something I left out here. Luckily it's still there, T-post puller. But I wanted to come over here and check this out anyway. And we'll get down here closer and I'll show you. I actually overbuilt it just a little bit. So let me climb down in here in this hole and I'll show you that. All right, so we're down here in this little washout area. And this is all the stuff that I was saying. All of this is about to come hit my fence right here. Remember, I put the tires here. And so the idea with the tires is that they can just kind of fold open and everything can go underneath them. I messed up though, and I realized this. I was thinking about it just the other day, but I wired them together. And when I did, I wired them around the T-post. See that? I should have wired them on the back side of the T-post. The other thing is, as much water as we had, I don't know if you can see, but the water was up to about here on that T-post, which is actually over this top rail. One thing I did right, I think, is I didn't put fence all the way across the top of that, and I debated it because this run over here, you can't see it from here, it's really short though, so I thought about just stretching the field fence, this type of wire, all the way across, but I decided not to, because if the water gets up that high, which it does occasionally, I want it to just flow right over the top. The other thing though is this is the way this is designed. This whole thing should be able to just hinge off this top rail here and open that way. And you can see, I mean, this spring already, the first year it's been up, the water was up high enough that it was going over this top rail, but this did not break loose and hinge. And that is because right here I tied that too well, and there's a tie right over here underneath all that debris, and another one, where'd it go? Right here. There, see that? I tied that on there. Where I messed up is I tied that with high tensile barbed wire. It was just a little short piece of leftover that I cut up for ties, and the same with those tires, and the same with this tie. Well, that wire does not give. It's extremely strong, and even though I only put like 2 twists in that wire, it held through all of this flow, and that's a lot of pressure to put on this. So, you know, what can happen if a whole bunch of crap gets in here and clogs this whole thing up is it'll just tear the fence posts, these H's. It'll literally just rip them out of the ground and take the whole fence down. So the whole point of this is that it should be able to kind of open and let everything flow underneath of it. But I tied that all together too well, apparently, because water was up over the top, and this did not break loose. This is supposed to be the failure point. And then the tires, I should not have tied around the T-post. I should have tied them outside of the T-post. So I'm going to fix that real quick, and I'm going to leave the high tensile wire on the tires where they're tied together. I need to bring one more tire out to fill that hole there. But you can kind of see how the tires opened up and let stuff go through. And there's not just a whole lot of debris right here. So for the most part, that worked. It did its job. But this, in this last flood, should have opened, and it'll open. We kind of measured it by just pulling the wire up over here, but it'll open kind of right to that tree that's on the other side there. And so the distance is it's kind of ideal, actually. It's kind of perfect. That's also why on this, I use this really thick panel. I don't have anything for comparison, but this is, it's I think it's 5/16 thick. Yeah, it might be 3/8, but it's a super heavy panel. They call them bull panels, but that's what I made all this out of. That way, because I expect it to be underwater a lot and take kind of a beating. But this is designed to open, and it didn't. So I'm going to change this right now, and we'll change out the ties where it's tied to the T-post here, and then where it's tied together up here. In fact, I I think I'm just going to remove the tie on this side and the one on the other side, and then I'm going to put a weaker wire down here. That way this can blow open. Now, obviously, if there's cows in here and this does blow open, anytime we have high water, you immediately need to come out here and check this to make sure that it sat back down where it's supposed to, and it is still a fence. And it should, especially with the way the tire's hanging on it, especially once I get a third one over here. I found one the other day. It's not far. I may go get it and tie it on there as well. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't quite work the way it was supposed to, but at least the tires worked and let most of it out, it looks like. So yeah, it could be worse. And in fact, I'm going to show you a spot where I overthought myself, and I outsmarted myself, and I built something a lot sturdier than I should have, and we may end up having to change something over there. So give me a minute, I'm gonna fix this and go get my T-post puller that I left out here, and then I'll show you that. Okay, so this area I built, we're right here below the pond. This is the dam. The pond's right on the other side there. And I built this the way I did because I knew this was going to be an area that would be prone to washing out. But I put in these heavy panels, same as I did on that other water gap. As you can see though, this is still a major washout area. And it's probably fairly apparent if we look down the T-post right here. They're leaning pretty hard. And remember, this is a brand new fence. We just finished it up, just last fall. And if we look at my post here, maybe kind of hard to see the on camera, but they're leaning, and so I'm holding the camera level as best I can. So I don't know how well you can tell, but this entire structure is, one, it's bowed in, and two, it's leaning over. So what I should have done, as I'm sitting here looking at this, was put that bottom post about probably here, and then probably like right about where that wire is there, or that horizontal on the panel, and then cut the panel and hinged it and mounted it from the other side so that it could break loose if it needed to. So I can still change that. We can come cut that loose. Man, it's going to be a pain in the butt though, because I've welded it all the way across the bottom. You know, not all the way, but every like 3, or I guess every 4 sections. So anyway, that's a pain. And that sucks. And this is obviously building up right here. Now, I knew this was going to be a wash because, as you can see, it's always been a wash, right? So where I'm standing right now actually used to be about 8 feet deep. You can see where it goes off down towards the creek right there. This has always been a washout, but I thought having the pond right here with this new dam right there would prevent a lot of this. And that's actually why there's not a post in the middle, because that's so soft, because it's all just fill dirt that I pushed in, gathered up from right over here. So if I had built this the way I built that other one, where it could break away and let go, none of this crap would be here, and it may have still tried to push the fence over. So, you know, you can see how high the debris is on the fence. I mean, it was 2/3 as tall as the fence is when the water was up just a few days ago. But it's leaning the fence over right here, and it's actually, these are all concreted in, but it's actually still even pushing my pipe structure over here. So like I said with the other one, if the water gets up high enough and for long enough, you get enough crap like this built up all the way on the face of it, that's a lot of pressure. Down here, a different spot at my creek. It's a really nice spot. It's really peaceful right here. Really like it. If I'm having a stressful day, I like to just come down here and hang out for a little bit. But you can see there's bluegill swimming around the water. And show you these guys if I can. Yeah, hang on. Let me turn the camera around. Let's see all these tadpoles. just loaded. Pretty cool. Anyway, big tree right there used to be laying right here. It was a perfect little bench, but high water flushed it away. So the fencing stuff I was just talking about, that's kind of it's not a big deal. Stuff that I can fix, and it's not really a problem. Well, it's a problem, don't get me wrong, but it's not a huge deal. I've made a lot of other mistakes though, in terms of cattle, particularly about this time of year. The weather out here is kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes it's 90 degrees, sometimes it's in the high 70s and perfectly pleasant. But I made a mistake last year, and it's on video. You can go back and find that video. I don't remember what it's called, but I was working cattle, and I think it may have been May, may have been June, but still, it was like 85 degrees, something like that. I was pretty comfortable, but I actually lost a cow to essentially heat stress. She got too hot in the pens. I had them in there too long, and so as you're planning out how you're going to work the cattle, because it's about to be time to give calves vaccines, and that's what I was doing. I was vaccinating calves. They were old enough to get their first round of vaccines, and at the same time I was giving pink eye vaccines as well to all the cows and dewormer, and I was doing it by myself. And I didn't call my neighbor, and I should have. But as I was doing that, whatever, I'm busy. I was at the head gate working, and then I go to get the next round of cows, and one of them was laying down flat out on her side, just panting. Terrible situation. And so I immediately opened gates, just turned everybody out, got everybody out of there, and sent them where they can go find shade, whatever. I'm done working them at that point, but it was too late for her. And I mean, there's nothing I could do at that point, and it was totally my mistake. So the cow was number 40, and she died just because I was being irresponsible with the way I worked them, which sucks. I hate that. So that was not a good day. But yeah, you got to be real careful of that though. And so the thing to remember is they're all kind of cooped up in the pens, and so number one, they've got to have fresh, clean water constantly, especially when it's warm. And even if it's not that hot, I mean, it was, like I said, it was like 85, and there was a nice breeze blowing. I was perfectly comfortable. I was sweating a little bit, but not bad. But it was enough to literally kill one of my cows. So terrible situation. I mean, horrible. Screwed up a otherwise fine day. So you got to plan for that. You got to understand that. I mean, at some point, if it's getting too hot, you just got to stop and turn them out and try again in the morning. So, and I had started that morning at about 6 o'clock and got them in, was working them. Everything was going fine. Was banding steers and vaccinating calves, giving the cows their shots and wormer and all of that. Everything was going fine. And yeah, then it wasn't. So just gotta be real careful of that, and remember that, I mean, they're stuck in there and they hurt up naturally, but then they're all just sharing body heat, and it was just too hot, even though it wasn't that hot, I didn't think. So big lesson learned there. That was a bummer. On the flip side of that, if you guys have been watching for a while, remember we had a huge cold snap this last winter, and not this last one, but the one before. And I lost 4 calves in the midst of all of that, and they got too cold. They got hypothermic, and all 4 of them ended up dying. I thought one of them was going to pull through, but he ended up going back down and got sick. And I tried my ass off, and just nothing I did worked. And my neighbors were watching me. They were helping me. They weren't just watching. I mean, hell, I had them at my neighbor's barn because I didn't have facilities to try and take care of them. But talking about it after the fact, they knew from the minute they saw them that just put a bullet in their head and put them out of their misery, because there's no saving them. Of course, I had to try. And they say the same thing. If it'd been theirs, they'd have tried. But that was a result of a previous mistake that I didn't realize I was making until my neighbors called me out on it, told me. And basically, I just wasn't providing enough nutrition, and I wasn't providing adequate nutrition for the cattle. And so I thought I was, per the numbers, I thought I was, but I wasn't. And so what happened is the mama cows didn't have enough nutrition to maintain enough milk for their cows, and so they self-weaned early. So then these calves that weren't really big enough to be on their own were on their own. Now at that point it was summer and fall, and there was plenty of grass, and so they were eating, and they were plenty fat, and they looked fine, right? They were all filled out. They weren't just shells of an animal. They didn't look bad, but they're not really ready to be off their mom yet. So even though, yeah, they're still full of grass, they weren't getting enough nutrition because they weren't able to process grass well enough. They still needed to be on milk, but their mamas had kicked them off because they weren't getting enough nutrition the spring before, actually. And so they were set back just from the start. And part of that is because I had so many heifers, and what I didn't understand about heifers, I knew that they were going to need more work. I knew that they were going to need more input. What I didn't understand, and the way my neighbor explained it to me, is that a 2-year-old cow is kind of like a 14-year-old girl, human girl, right? And yes, she can get pregnant, and yes, she can have a baby, and yes, she can raise that baby, but she's young, really young, right? I mean, 14-year-old girl, that would be a bad situation for pretty much across the board for a human. But that's kind of the situation they're in. So they not only need special treatment, but they need a ton more feed input, a ton more nutrients in order to carry that pregnancy to term, for one, but also to be able to raise that baby, that calf. They need way more input than what I was providing for them. So what I was giving them was based on basically cow numbers, and it's just not the same. And so they just didn't have the nutrients to provide for their babies. And in nature, when that happens, you just kick the babies off and go with God. And all four of those calves that I lost, they were calves of heifers. So that was entirely my mistake, and it's just something I didn't realize I was screwing up until it was kind of too late, because by the time I corrected and started fixing it, the damage was done. And some of most of my heifers are still with me, and they took an entire year off. That's why I didn't have a calf crop for this year, or for last year. That's why I didn't have calves. I didn't breed them back because they weren't good enough shape, and so I had to wait because I screwed up on the front end. I had to wait before I could breed them back until they caught back up and got into shape. And now everybody's doing great. And this year I fed about 95 tons of hay and about 6,000 pounds of 20% feed, and they're all doing really good. So a lot more input, and they're all a little bit older now, but they got set back. And so that's the reason those calves died, though, is because they weren't big enough. They weren't old enough to be on their own, but then they were. But now they're living off of hay. They're not big enough yet to eat the cubes, because I'm feeding 3/4 inch cubes, which is for the cows. But the calves aren't big enough to actually eat that. It's too big for them. If you're going to put a calf that size on feed, you would use smaller, like a 3/8 pellet or something like that, or even just a granular. And they can eat it better. They can absorb the nutrients out of it better. I just totally screwed that up, just biffed it all the way. And so that's why those 4 calves died, because they just did not have the nutrition. I had several others that had frostbite ears, same type of thing. They just didn't have enough energy to maintain their body heat. And that was all entirely my fault. And it sucks. And it is what it is. There's nobody else to blame. It's not the weather that was the problem. Cows can absolutely handle that kind of weather. You look at guys up in Montana, they have like -30s every year, and their calves live right through it. And sometimes they have boxes and stuff they put over them to help insulate them, but they can handle it. The cattle can handle it if they have the proper nutrition, and mine didn't. And not only that, but they didn't have it for pretty near a year prior to that. That's why I had those problems. It wasn't the cold. That the cold just kind of showed me the problem, but the problem happened earlier on, and that was entirely my fault. So nutrition, number one. And that's why at this point I've switched to that different mineral system. I think it's a better program. It's expensive, but I think it's given them a better mineral choice. This year, I fed them more than I thought I needed to, and they responded really well, and they've done great. So lesson learned, that will not happen again, uh, ever. So now I know, but it was a costly mistake, and honestly just a rookie mistake. And to be fair, that was the first time I had ever raised calves like that, commercially. I have some experience as a teenager working cows and stuff like that, and being around them. I was familiar with the animals, but I didn't understand all the agri-science behind it, and I've learned quite quickly, out of necessity, I guess, and through a lot of heartbreak and pain. So anyway, that will never happen again. Got to feed the damn critters. Another thing they've told me is that you can't starve a profit out of them. And I thought I understood that, but after going through that, I I understand it. I get it. Can't starve a profit out of them. So anyway, if you're looking to start a cattle operation, just plan on more hay, plan on more feed than you think you need. And at the end of the day, throw the numbers out. Just look at your animals, and make sure that they're doing what they need to do. Watch the mama cows, make sure that they're being good mamas. And if they're starting to kick them calves off early, it's not necessarily a bad cow. It's a bad manager, bad rancher at that point. You got to fix your program.